The Ministry of Balance's latest proclamation says, and I quote, "We wanted to make Elbing feel more distinct from the alternative German destroyers, while also giving her a buff. To achieve this, we improved her torpedo armament, gave her a long awaited increase to the main battery range, and added engine boost." This was music to my ears when I first saw it in the patch notes. Ever since Elbing was released as a Global XP premium ship years ago, I've been hoping that they would increase the main battery range because upon release, it was a mere 10.8 kilometers, which is not enough at all for a destroyer like this. The reason I say that, of course, is because the Elbing has, if not the hardest hitting destroyer AP in the entire game, then close to it. The AP that comes out of these guns, on this ship in particular, and the whole German alternative destroyer line, is amazing. It can chunk broadside battleships, it can citadel cruisers, and it can even do a number to enemy destroyers, particularly when they're angled. I think we'll see a lot of that in this game. This, of course, is the first match I played in Elbing since it was buffed, and I suppose we should talk about the particulars as we push into the Bravo cap here. The main battery range buff, I think, could have been better. The base range was increased from the really terrible, in my opinion, 10.8 kilometers to 11.1 kilometers. And I should probably show you the build. We are, of course, using the same build that I've always used, Eric Bai, although I think I've modified the build, and I've got both Rumble and the French destroyer commander Chuck as inspirations to really increase the main battery range. I also have the epic or the legendary range mod in the fourth slot. I was hoping the range buff would be sufficient enough that I could replace that with the reload mod to get a little bit more DPM out of the Elbing's guns, but I don't think we're quite there yet. With the epic range mod, with Rumble, and with Chuck, the main battery range on these Elbing guns right now is 14 kilometers even. The range flag in the fifth flag slot is also contributing to that, so it's actually a little bit shorter. But 14 kilometers is certainly preferable to what it was before. The big issue is that the reload time on these main battery guns is 6.9 seconds. Very nice, I know. And that's not great, especially if you're fighting other destroyers. Practically everything has a quicker reload than that, but that doesn't mean you can't do stuff to other destroyers. Of course, we encountered that Azerlane Z-24, smoked up, had to get away a little bit. Now we're coming back, and as you can see, the new engine boost consumable has been active this entire time. This thing also really helps with the Elbing. It's not the typical 8% engine boost that you find on most destroyers. Instead, it's like the special French engine boost, where you get a 15% bonus to your speed. An Elbing speed, with the speed flag and with this build at base, is 37.3 knots, which means then with this speed flag, you're going to be able to get it going over 40 knots in a straight line. That, I suppose, could help you be a little bit more of an open water gunboat, particularly with the buff to the range. If you're trying to harass a battleship or a cruiser at, say, a range of 12, 13 kilometers, and you've got this engine boost running, and then you play with the throttle, well, that could very well save you from taking a lot of damage from the main battery guns of those enemy ships trying to shoot back at you. So there is that, which is lovely. And as for the torpedoes, I mean, I thought they were already pretty good on Elbing, but it does have much more torpedo range than the rest of the tech tree line, I suppose. The torpedoes range out to 13.5 kilometers, and there's 10 of them in 2 quintuple launchers. I think previously they only went at a top speed of 55 knots, but that has been massively buffed in this balance change. They now go at 65 knots, and I was wrong actually, the speed was 50 knots even, getting close to Italian sea mine territory. That's been buffed to the 65 knots. They hit for 15,599 maximum simulated damage. And with that kind of range and that kind of speed, coupled with the newly buffed reload of only 85 seconds, The torpedoes and the main battery guns on this thing are now quite good. You can see here against the Atlantico. I mean, you saw what they did to the Azurlane Z-24. I think we had to switch to HE for a moment while he was stern on to us. The AP can't, of course, pen at those kind of steep angles, but the guns did a number to him. We see some 7K salvos against the Atlantico broadside. I'm sure the epic or the legendary mod is playing into that. We've got 2 kills, so we've procced it twice. And the legendary version of the range mod, of course, it buffs the main battery range more for every 30,000 damage you do. That's the whole reason I'm running it. But it also buffs the damage for every kill you get by 5% until the end of the battle. And well, the damage on these Elbing guns, as you might imagine, is already very good. The AP hits harder than any other destroyer in the game, with a base AP shell damage of 4,100. And of course, the armor pen at point blank range is 441 millimeters, which is higher, I think, than any destroyer in the game. The only thing that even comes close to it, ironically enough, from some other line, is if you look at Burrows at the legendary tier, the base AP pen on that is 358, nearly 100 millimeters less than Elbing's 441, but like 60, 70, even 100 millimeters more than any other destroyer's AP pen that you want to look at. These guns are really special in that sense, and also they are probably the most accurate guns in the whole game. The Elbing survivability, too, is also pretty good. It does have a 25 millimeter plate all along the midsection of the ship, and 25 millimeters, while it's not a ton of armor, I suppose, it is enough to shatter the HE shells of a lot of destroyers you're going to encounter if they have really small caliber guns, like 127 millimeter to 130. I don't think any of those can actually pen 25 millimeters of armor with the HE. So now we've got a much improved Elbing. Again, I think the range buff could be a little bit more. I don't really know why we're focusing on the torpedoes so much as the primary armament for this ship. The guns are really where it's at. I mean, you've seen the work they've done in this battle, but don't worry. If you want to see what the torpedoes are like, we've got an enemy Iowa that looks eager to oblige us in that request. You see he's sailing out here. He's going to end up, I think, missing the torpedoes sent by the friendly destroyer there. But based on the way he's going, I think he's going to end up right in the path of our torpedoes. And this speed buff that they've got, well, in previous iterations of the Elbing with the slower torpedoes, the Iowa could have very easily accelerated past these ones that I've got coming his way. This speed buff, though, I think it is going to make these torpedoes easier to land on target. Iowa doesn't seem to really know to expect them. He's coming around that little rock there, and now I think the torpedoes essentially have him in their sights. There they go. It's a devastating strike for the Kraken Unleashed in the newly buffed Elbing. This was a bit of a blowout, of course. I really don't like to show these on YouTube, but once you get a test of a newly buffed ship like this, and it ends up in a Kraken, well, I feel like that's got to go on YouTube. There's the high caliber metal to go along with it. Minnesota is gone. Enemy team has lost all of their ships except one single solitary destroyer somewhere. And in the whole course of this battle, we've only lost 2 of the ships. So, yeah, there you go. Terrible blowout, very competitive match. Not exactly the kind of thing you want to see in World of Warships Legends. But 127,000 damage done, Kraken Unleashed, high caliber, and a devastating strike medal, too, from the newly buffed torpedoes. So Elbing, I think, is in a pretty good state. I don't know about the balancing of the ship overall, though. I think this concealment that we have with Eric Bai at 5.3, and that's just using Eric Bai, the Look at Me Now skill, and the concealment module. I think maybe that's a little bit low for something like this with such ridiculous main battery power. That could stand to maybe be rebalanced, I don't know, and I would also like to see more range on the main battery guns, just enough to get it to around what I have it here now at 14 kilometers or so. But get it to that, and then let me use the main battery reload mod to improve the really slow 6.9-second reload time. If we got a buff like that, where the range was significant enough that you could achieve that kind of distance and also take the reload mod, I don't know, maybe the ship would be too powerful, but that's the way I want to play it. Again, I think it's interesting that their idea for differentiating this ship, because it is technically a premium in Legends, is to give it more of a torpedo buff. I mean, I can see that. The alternative line itself has much shorter range on their torpedoes than 13.5. So I guess that makes sense that they're going to differentiate it in that way. But Elbing is just not the kind of destroyer that you're going to be playing based on its torpedo power, I don't think. It's going to be based on the main battery firepower because it's just excellent in this case. Anyway, I think if you don't have Elbing, it does cost a lot of global XP. I believe 1.8 million. So that's going to take a while to grind, but I love this ship. It's one of my favorite destroyers in the game, even in spite of the misgivings I have still about its main battery range, but I would highly recommend it if you don't have it. There's nothing quite like it, and it's very satisfying to get those big AP chunks against other ships. So, hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.